And now I will turn it over to Amy Johnson.
Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate you and being here today and helping with the technical support. And hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. When we were doing some sound checks, there was an awful lot of static coming from my end. I think it was because I was moving around and sort of using my computer and looking at the participant list and the chat. So if you hear static, please let us know. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to be incredibly still so that maybe there won't be more static from my end. But anyway, we're so glad you're here today. Welcome for today's division update. These are a presentation that I provide about once a quarter, just to give some updates about what's going on here in Tallahassee and as relates to the Division of Library Information Services. Again, I could not do this particular presentation or almost any presentation or anything virtually without great technical support. And Rebecca Thomas and Chelsea Lefevre make it very, very easy as long as I remember to be still. That's me. I need that's my part of this. So I'm doing my very best to be still. Again, welcome everybody. We're so glad you're here. Now, as we get started, as always, I want to remind you and ask you, and we're all together. How are things going? Let's check in. What's going on that's really amazing and exciting for you, where you work, in the library where you are, or what are, maybe if you're willing to share, some of the challenges that are happening right now. This is a group of folks who understand the things that you're going through and the challenges that you might be facing. You have lots of friends and colleagues throughout the state, and so I always want to start out by, please put in the chat the things that are exciting or potentially challenges that you're having. I also want you to know that with either of those, sort of either end of the spectrum related to what is going on for you at your workplace, you have incredible sets of colleagues. I know you already know that. I'm just reminding you. You've got colleagues here in Tallahassee at the Division of Library Information Services. You have wonderful colleagues throughout the state, folks you've gotten to know probably through your multi-type library cooperatives and the work that you all do together regionally. And of course, we all have our Florida Library Association and the colleagues and support we have there. So I know you're leaning on all of those groups as appropriate and when times present themselves. But I always want to sort of check in as we're getting started together on these. So happy to hear from you related to anything, in the chat as we're going today, anything that's happening that's really, really fabulous that's happening in your, and we're getting some things going there. Oh, awesome. A new online registration program. That is great. How exciting. That's wonderful. Yep. And a groundbreaking. Oh, and St. Johns County for Hastings Library. So exciting. Yes. Wonderful. Great things going on all over the state. Lots of things to celebrate. And so, certainly I love celebrating with you all when you're sharing these things with us, all of us, so that we can celebrate together. So thank you for putting those things in the chat. We'll go ahead and get started, keep going here with the content that I have that I put together, and I'm so busy reading what you all are putting that I get distracted, and I got to remember to be still. Yep. All right. So just as we get started, and as we often do when we come together for this particular division update, we're going to start with sort of thinking about what's going on in downtown Tallahassee, and it seems like we're always in some position related to the legislature and budget, and indeed we are doing exactly that. What you see up on the screen is the dates for the months where we're having legislative sessions this year and the next following 2 years. This is 2025. It's an odd-numbered year, which means we have sort of the traditional legislative session timing, March through May. Of course, what that means is that right now, and actually this very, very week, we are having legislative committee weeks because we have 6 weeks of committee weeks in preparation for legislative session to start in early March. So all of those things are going on. If you are listening to news that provides you information about Florida's government here, again in downtown Tallahassee, you will have heard that the governor has called a special session, and that is slated to begin on January the 27th. So that is in addition to the committee weeks. I need to verify that, but there's 6 sets of committee weeks, or six weeks of preparation by the legislature prior to session starting, and then we also now have, in addition, a special session that has been called by the governor. So I'm sure you're hearing about those things as well. So we're going to move through the next set of slides. Thank you so much for sharing all these great things that are coming through on the chat. I am loving hearing about all the wonderful things going on. Amazing. So again, we always start sort of at the top of our conversation thinking about the budget cycle. We are somewhere, we're not quite at 7 o'clock if you think about, a sort of a typical wall clock. We are waiting on the governor's budget. The governor's budget has to be published at 30 days before session. We are still a couple of weeks out from that particular calendar date. But I would imagine that we might see the governor's budget anytime within sort of the next 2 weeks. It seems to me, just based on my observation, that he is talking about some things that are his priorities, that are Governor DeSantis's priorities, that have some budget numbers attached to them. So I believe that means that the budget is probably closing in on being able to be published. And it does, like I say there on the slide, at round about 7 o'clock, that sort of place on if you're thinking about this as a clock, that early February is when that is due. We then launch immediately a month later into legislative session, beginning on March 4th there. Sorry, my tongue cannot say what I am reading on the slide. Sorry about that. So 60 days of session, March 4th through May 2nd. And then the rest of that sort of cycle that you see there on the screen sort of describes what will happen specifically related to the budget and the conference that will happen in order to finalize the budget. Typically pretty late in session, so that's why I'm predicting there late April. And then we will have, again, assuming everything runs on time, which is the best I can predict at this point, then by that May 2nd date, the full legislature would vote on the budget that they have passed, and then they would adjourn, of course, sine die, and then we would wait for the governor to sign the budget. So obviously all of that's still yet to come between now and June 30th, really, in reality, but legislative session ending early May there, so we'll have some more knowledge the next time we're together about where the budget stands during the next division update. But for today, what I will share with you, if we can advance to the next slide, is looking at what is currently published. And what is currently published is the Department of State's budget request for 25-26. And so that is what you'll see reflected here. For those of you who are very astute and observant, which is all of you all, I know, you're gonna recognize that these figures are exactly the same figures that I shared with you in October, because you think back to that cycle I showed you a few moments ago. The department's budget comes out in really late September. We met in October, so I had these figures to share with you at that time, and there has been no other budget published since we were last together. So we will talk about these in as much detail as you all would like, but I don't plan to spend a lot of time on them since they are numbers that we looked at together last quarter. But what you see here on the screen is just a very huge, just a grand overview of funding by our grant programs. Because I know that it is something that you all will probably, like me, pay a lot of attention to. So these are the things that we are predicting and what was asked for in the Department of State's budget request for the year 2025-2026. I want to pay attention to the public library construction line there where it says NA or not applicable. What that means is the department we do not have a specific request related to public library construction grant funds. That goes through the legislative process. So we don't start our budget process by asking for a specific amount. What we do is pull together all the public library construction applications that we have received, and we then present those applications to the legislature for them to determine funding. And that's why this point in the process, it will always say not applicable, because the department does not make a budget request for that program. It is awarded by the legislature based on those applications. All right, so we'll move on to the next slide. Again, just some more slides related to budget. So what you see here is our overall, the Department of State's overall 2025-2026 budget request at $34.2 million. There are three budget categories just to in the division. So we have some funding from the general revenue, which is, your tax dollars, right? And our tourist tax dollars, those things that fund public services in the state of Florida. We also have some federal funds, which we'll look at in more specifically. And then we also have a records management trust fund. So that is related to the work that we do with patrons and agencies where we provide training or other services, and we collect a fee. So let's move on to the next slide.
Probably super.
All right, so just looking here at our federal funding and our federal funding history, the one thing that I'll just call your attention to, again, the very bottom line and in italics you see there, because it's all sort of, it's the proposed, it's not yet set. In the Department of State's 2025-2026, for external awards is at $2,150,606. That is our recurring authority. As provided by the legislature every year. That is actually only permission. That is not dollars. It is permission to spend $2.15 million. In that sort of middle column where it says federal allotment, it does say unknown currently, because we do not yet at this time have a federal budget for the current federal fiscal year. Therefore, we do not have a current a federal allotment at this time. So that is why it says unknown currently. I think we're under continuing resolution through I think the third week in March, and then hopefully we'll have some federal budget action that will mean that we'll have some more specifics before the next time we get together, before the next division update. So moving forward, we'll look at state aid to libraries, and you saw that again on that one of the first budget slides that I shared with you. We're looking at basically just flat across the board in the Department of State's budget request, $17.3 million. That is the general revenue recurring amount for state aid to libraries, and so that's what you see there in the budget request. And again, any of these, well, except for the federal, could go through the legislative session, could go up or down. And that's why, when we'll talk a little bit more about this, it's important for you to make it known to state elected officials about the importance of it's any of this particular funding for your operations. Please do lend your voice with those who are at home before they come to Tallahassee, and then perhaps while they are here in Tallahassee. The Florida Library Association does have a Library Legislative Day, which you can participate in, and there certainly are other opportunities to make sure that elected officials understand the importance of this funding for your operations. All right, so we'll move on to the next slide. You're going to see here again, as we were just talking about, another one of our grant programs. This is our Library Cooperative Grant Program. This is the program that is the state general revenue funds for our multi-type library cooperatives. I need to step away for a moment. I am very, very sorry to do this, but I need to step away. I will be back as soon as I can. I apologize. Okay, everyone, I am back. I am so very, very sorry that happened, but we will proceed on with what we were talking about. So we were talking a little bit about you lending your voice and support for our grant programs, and I do encourage you to do that. And if you're unsure how to do that, please, I will encourage you to reach out to me for so I can talk to you about some opportunities for you to participate in lending your support or your city or county support for these programs. So, all right, so we'll move on to the next screen. Again, we're just looking at briefly looking at all the grant funding programs that we have here, and we're just looking at the public library construction with this slide, and we talked a little bit about the reason for the NA and the unknown currently, because we haven't completed the legislative session yet. So, and again, even when we're together again in April at the next division update, we'll have some updates for this, because we will have been through some weeks of legislative session, so we'll probably have some idea of what things look like at that point. So anyway, stay tuned for updates, right? All right, moving on to the next slide. I always like to talk to you about upcoming grant deadlines. At this point, I don't have any DLIS grant deadlines to provide for you. We are working on a rule revision, another rule revision, and so as soon as that rule revision is complete, we will be able to release to you the deadlines for the Library Services and Technology Act grant fund so you could opt into that, applying for that, as well as our other grant programs, public library construction for consideration in the 2026 legislative session, which would have money available for you in July 2026. So all of that's coming down the road, and as we always do, there will be lots of information in our newsletters and on our webpage related to those grant deadlines as soon as we know what they are. So we'll keep moving forward. I am watching the chat. If you have any questions, please feel free to put questions in the chat. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. So right now we're thinking for a second about the Sunshine State Library Leadership Institute, and so I've got a slide there. Those are the beautiful smiling faces of our graduates from year 18. So they were here with us in Tallahassee in July, and we celebrated their graduation. So I've got that photograph there, which makes me smile, remembering that our day together. Year 19 of the Sunshine State Library Leadership Institute is moving right along. It is progressing as scheduled on the division's end, and I know with our partner Nephilim, folks are starting to we are starting to think about graduation, which will be in July of 2025. So already have that on our calendar, thinking in terms of thinking about that and graduating a whole nother cohort. That's still a couple of months down the line, but all of these plans kind of keep moving along. The other thing I will let you know. Excuse me, I need to take a sip of water. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm back. One of the things that we're thinking about and planning for, and you will see more information very soon, is in FY 2025-2026, we anticipate holding another session of the Next Level Library Leadership Institute, or NLI. So stay tuned about that. Lots going on in the planning stage, and we're preparing for an announcement related to that. We'll move on to the next slide, please. All right, so now I want to sort of think about funding opportunities. I'm sorry, hang on. I always want to talk to you and remind you about incredible funding opportunities that our friends at Florida Humanities provide for libraries. So 2 here, Book Festival grants and Florida Talks. Those are things that I hope that your library has participated in the past, or at least is aware of these opportunities. And great, thank you so much, Chelsea, for dropping links into the chat. That's I know helpful to folks. So thank you for that. I just wanted to provide this funding opportunities, and in a moment I'll remind you about another funding opportunity on the next slide, actually. Florida Humanities is offering funding support for summer reading programs for public libraries. So wanted to make sure that you're aware of this and that extended deadline of the February 12th. So please, if you're interested in receiving some support from Florida Humanities for your summer reading program, please make sure to apply for this particular opportunity. And on the next screen, we'll talk a little bit more about, or I should say the next slide, sorry, screen for me, about the Summer Florida Library Youth Program. Many of you are aware that we've had quite a number of changes announced recently with our Florida Library Youth Program. One part of that is that we do not have a state contract for the summer program any longer. So what that means is that all libraries that are participating of any type are determining independently what they would like the theme and artwork, all of that sort of theme. It's being determined locally. And so one of the things that we have done here, and actually had done before this announcement, is had formed some work groups so that youth services staff could work together to share ideas and share what themes and other types of information that's being developed locally. So if you would like to be part of the work groups, please reach out to us. We would be more than happy to have you participate in the work groups. There is a work group that is dedicated to the summer program. There's also another work group that is collectively thinking about, I believe, sort of services to I think teens and sort of older, if you will, children. And they don't like to be called that, I know, but so we do have these two work groups. And so if you have staff that would like, yes, perfect, thank you. Please reach out to me and I'll get you connected to Dorothy Frank, who has luckily and wonderfully put that her email address in the chat for me. So you can contact Dorothy directly. And part of the reason for that is because, and many of you are aware of this, our youth services consultant did separate from the Department of State. She got another wonderful job, and so our position is vacant. Our youth services position is vacant. So we're accepting applications right now. If anybody who's online and is interested, but that we are working to fill that position. So in the meantime, Dorothy Frank is the best contact for that. Although one of the things that I will say, and I hope this is true across the division, if you're not sure who to contact anybody and we will connect you with the right person. So never hesitate, just reach out. And other things that I want to remind you about the Florida Library Youth Program is that we do have resources on our webpage that have been refreshed very recently, and we do have a newsletter that goes out. So I hope that you're tapped into all of those opportunities. We know that the summer 2025 is going to be very different than it has been in the past. And we are looking towards and planning for what will summer 2026, 2027, and on into the future, what will that look like? So, stay tuned with us, volunteer, or encourage your staff to volunteer if that's appropriate for the work groups, because we do want to, we're working on this collectively, and we want your help. So anyway, thank you for the comments, and thank you for the vote of confidence in division staff. And yes, we will be collecting statistics, and I'll tell you, I can't answer, and I know I had another question on this, right now, me personally, I can't answer if the statistics will be exactly the same as in the past. We will be interested in collecting statistics, absolutely. My guess is we will probably have a couple of questions that are different. I know that one of the things I've talked about with staff is for us to collect some information that sort of documents what the decisions were made locally about how to proceed with 2025, whether you, and I'm going to, just sort of throw some things out there, whether whether you developed your own program, whether you went with a different national program, whether, sort of what it, so I do know, I am as sure as I can be that we will be collecting statistics. The questions themselves might look a little different. So stay tuned for that. And we'll be able to, you'll know more about that as soon as possible. And thank you, yes, Dorothy, again, for talking about, we are building a place where you can share programming ideas, themes, artwork, all of that, where you can share if you're willing to share with your peers and colleagues. There will be a place that we're going to provide that you'll be able to use for that. And again, we see that for 2025 and moving into the future as well as something that will be continued to be used, even though it might, the program itself and the kind of support we're able to give might look different in the future. We do want to build a place where we can all share things into the future. Great. So lots of good comments coming in. So okay, good. State monetary assistance. So if you're talking about from the Department of State Division of Library and Information Services, I do not at this time anticipate that there will be, and there, let me say it differently, there will not be any state monetary assistance for summer 2025. That is, we're still determining what we might be able to do, but it is looking unlikely that we would be able to provide anything. And I would say, I'm going to even say highly unlikely. I would strongly recommend that you look at the Florida Humanities option for funding, look at that, as well as, I know in some other meetings, there was other things that were mentioned, like Dollar General grants, some other places like that. We do, the division, and I specifically, Amy Johnson, realize that this change so quickly, unannounced, has left a gap in related to the way that things have been done in the past, and for that I'm sorry. We'll work and see what we're able to do in the future, as far as, so whether it's monetary assistance and or other kinds of coordination. So again, keep the questions coming. Keep those. That's all good. All really good. I appreciate it. And I'm going to look at 1 second, because I did have some questions come in before the session started, and so I want to. So I'm looking at. My questions that have come in, just to make sure I've answered it. And there is another question that came in that says, basically, if you decide locally that you are using the CSLP for summer 2025, which is a local decision and absolutely fine, it says, will we still need to provide summer statistical reporting? Again, I'm gonna say yes, that we're gonna still ask you for some summer stats, regardless of what theme or program or vendor that you used. That is certainly currently our plan, is to ask for some summer stats. It helps us see what's going on across the state, which is just another set of information that we use to help design our support for the future. So those statistics are really important to us as we are developing and designing future support for the summer program. And I will say, even without the stats, I can tell you, we know in the division, I know, Amy Johnson, that the support is highly valued. And I know that the work you all are doing in encouraging literature and enjoyment and during the summer is helping with have folks, especially students and children, maintain some bit of readiness for school, right? All these programs are so valuable. Number one, they're enjoyable. People love them. I hear your stories. I see pictures of the parties and all those things, and it's just absolutely amazing. So I know they are wonderful and enjoyable, but more importantly, I know they serve as a really important support for families and children and their and education during the summer. So that is a really important thing for us to continue to develop our knowledge and understanding about, and sometimes the stats help us with that as well. Okay, perfect. So we're going to move forward. Great comments again coming in. That's great. Great. That's awesome. So we've got websites out here. We've got a vendor that and a couple of ideas on vendors or other sources for, so all in the chat. I hope you're seeing that in the chat. The other thing is just a quick aside, when we send out the recording to you, the chat, you will get a copy of the chat, so you'll have that information in the chat. So moving on, thank you, Rebecca, for doing that for me, moving the slide forward. DLIS councils and boards, we do have lots of, we have a couple of meetings coming up. And so we just had our Friends of the State Library and Archives of Florida, it's our citizen support organization. They just met actually earlier this week, the full board did, and they meet next again in April. We are all gearing up for a state library council meeting. That's our other counselor board that I always think about on this slide. They will meet deep in February 26th and 27th, in order to review the federal grant applications and to develop funding recommendations for the Secretary of State. So lots of council and board meetings going on at this point in the year, which is great. So moving on ahead, one of the things that I'm excited to be able to let you know is that we are offering research stipends again. This is actually very new news and may not be fully announced yet. We'll be making sure to include lots of information about this, but there is an opportunity for anybody who wants to do research in our collections to get a research stipend. This is as supported by the Friends of the State Library and Archives, Inc. The Citizen Support Organization, or our friends, the Division's Friends Group, will provide up to 3 awards of $1,000 each for research in the collection of the State Library and the State Archives. And the applications will be due late March with information going out to the applicants prior to the end of April. So anyway, all of that is will be up on our webpage, or is up on our webpage. Thank you, Chelsea. I know we are even just this week finishing the application and other things that are up on the webpage, and the things that are yet to come up on the webpage. So that's awesome. Wonderful. Okay, so moving ahead, I always want to remind you when we're together how the Division of Library Information Services works with our sister division and the Division of Elections here in the Department of State. Public libraries, don't forget that your report on your voter registration agency quarterly activities report is due this week. It was actually due yesterday. And so please don't forget to provide that information. And the email address that quarterly report should be delivered to is on the screen there. Lindsay Harrington sends out reminders to public libraries, and I always like to use this update to provide information to you all, as well as a reminder that this is a part of state law, that libraries operate as voter registration agencies, and we do have required reporting per state law. So just a reminder for that. Let's move on ahead to the next slide. Always when we're together, I'd like to remind you about our statewide resource sharing. We do have a platform called Flynn Share It that we provide. If you are interested in doing and participating in interlibrary loan through this platform, it is absolutely optional, but we would love for you to participate with us in Flynn Share It. It is an opportunity for us in Florida to be able to have real-time access to what's available on the shelf through your integrated library system, so that you can see about doing interlibrary loan with other libraries in Florida. Flynn Share does also, we in Florida opt into an ability to borrow items and borrow and lend items from other states as well, who also use this autographics product. So if you don't know any, and you would like more information, maybe that's a better way to say it, we'd be happy to tell you more about the resource sharing opportunities through Flynn Share It. And if we move on to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about more that related to statewide resource sharing. We do support with our partner, the Tampa Bay Library Consortium, the Florida Library Delivery Service. And so what you have on the screen here is sort of looking at the last calendar year with some statistics. For the folks who use the Florida Library Delivery Service, this is our courier service. During calendar year 2024, over almost 136,000 packages were sent. Wow, that's amazing. And so lots and lots of work. And this is representing Florida to Florida resource sharing or largely, and it is designed to be Florida to Florida only, for that 136,000 roughly total packages being sent. All right, and another great announcement related to this, if you're participating in the Florida Library Delivery Service, as of this month, we are now, well, actually I should say TBLC is now posting monthly user statistics. And so anybody that is using the courier service, yay, thank you, Kelly. You can use the link there that Kelly just put in the chat or is available on the TBLC website, and you can see your user statistics. We will update that with TBLC every month, pretty early in the month, so that everybody that's using the courier service has sort of, if you will, real-time information about the number of packages that are moving around and through you as a participating organization in the courier service. So wonderful, good stuff all around. All right, moving ahead, and again, some reminders, things I always like to remind you about. We do offer a table of contents service. If you are interested in getting the table of contents for any of our professional journals or periodicals there, you can fill out the bit.ly form and tell us which ones you're interested in. And once you're signed up for that, we will then, as soon as we get a new issue, we will send you the table of contents, and you will tell us what articles you might like to see. So anyway, sign up for the table of contents service if that is something that you're interested in. I also like to always remind you about our professional e-resources. So please, if you don't already have a state library card, we can issue you a professional a card, because if you work in a public library, a public school, or a public academic library, we can issue a state library card to you, and you can access our professional e-resources. We'd be happy to have you do that. But we buy these things with you all in mind, but both our internal staff in the division, but of course with you all in mind as well. Moving forward, also reminding you, in our state library collection, we do collect professional print materials, which we have and make available through interlibrary loan. We have a growing collection also. On the next slide, some title art examples of some professional ebook materials that we purchase and provide with you all in mind. We do use Baker and Taylor product Boundless for access to the materials. We do, for the titles that are on the slide here, we do also have those in print for interlibrary loan if you prefer that. So, you know, sometimes, I'm sure as you do as well, you buy things both in electronic format and in print format. All right, so moving forward, we're going to talk a little bit about continuing education opportunities. So you know, plenty of opportunities across the state. We've got opportunities from all of our partner organizations, as I talked about, you know, a little earlier in our time together today. The Florida Library Association offers continuing education. Our multi-type library cooperative partners offer continuing education. So lots of things to make to tap into for you or staff. I'm going to talk about some things that are specific to the division at this point. So if we think about upcoming trainings and meetings, just a listing here of some things that are sort of upcoming in the next month or so. So we've got a garden discussion that'll happen this month. And then our public library directors virtual meeting, the date there for that, as well as our February DLIS discussion that I have listed there as well. Just to be clear, the link that is at the bottom of this particular slide does lead you to the webinar training. So specifically on the slide, that would lead you to a registration link for the garden conversation and for the legislative research tools conversation. The Public Library Directors monthly virtual meeting and some other meetings that we hold, those are sent out by email to a targeted group. And so they are not available as the registration link is not available on our webpage. But anyway, so just to be clear about that. Moving forward, we could think about records management training. We do have some open registration webinars if you're interested in records management training for you or for any of your staff. We do have those available and we offer them every month. I think I mentioned earlier that, you know, I kept saying that this next division update, which of course is, you know, a type of training opportunity, is in April, and there is the date for our next division update, April 17th. Again, as we reach that date, we'll be we'll be down into crunch time for legislative session. So again, by that particular meeting, I would be able to give you, by the April 17th, we could talk about the budget as we know it on that date. Again, that is a point where the budget from, in essence, that point forward until the end of the session, it will be changing rapidly and frequently, but we certainly can look together at what we are seeing as of that April 17th deadline, or I'm sorry, that April 17th conversation. It is a deadline of sorts. I got to get my thoughts together. So there it is, a deadline of sorts. All right. So I think at this point, oh, good point. Thank you about the DLIS discussion. Thank you for that. The 217. Let us look at that. We don't get that particular holiday off as state employees, and so we had not thought about that. So thank you so much, Heather, for bringing that up. Stay tuned about whether it's rescheduled or not. So just, you know, stay tuned with us on that because that's February. I'm going to say I believe we probably will look at rescheduling that, but stay tuned. And thank you so much for bringing that up. I'm glad I put that on the slide so that we could get that feedback. With that, I am happy to take any other questions you might have. Also, again, I'm trying to be really still, but I'm not doing a great job at it. I am looking to see if, I do have a couple of other questions that I need to address. So I will do that. And then any questions that you have, you can certainly put in the chat as well. We do have about 10 minutes before the top of the hour, so I know that many of you will need to, you know, sort of get ready for whatever is next for you coming up next. So let me deal with some of these questions that I got. One of the questions I was asked is, what is the status of state archives calendars? Patrons are asking if we'll have them. And I'm so thankful that patrons lovingly remember our state archives calendars. We do not have a 2025 calendar. Unfortunately, we do not have a 2025 calendar. I will tell you that division staff, and more importantly, state archive staff, are in the process of designing a 2026 calendar. So I do think that that in the future we will have a calendar, but right now we do not have 2025 calendar. We do not have that. So okay, so there's that question. I'm looking at questions in the chat. Construction grant, is there a timeline for the new rank list to be published? So for all of the construction applications that we have already received, so anything that we have received before now, and all of the ones that are will be and are being considered by the 2025 legislative session, those are part of a rank list. They are on our webpage. And so that is available and has already been provided to the legislature for consideration. You know, they're not really doing a whole lot of budget stuff right now, but that list has already gone to the legislature, and that list is available on our webpage. For the applications that we will call for that would be considered in the 2026 legislature, or I'm sorry, it's better said, 2026 legislative session. Those, obviously we don't have the applications, and that ranked list would be put together the end of calendar year 2025 in preparation for the 2026 legislative session. So Robert, I can, either somebody can drop in the chat the link to that list. I believe it's on our webpage. I know we have the list, so if it's not on our webpage, I will circle up with you. Being still, but writing myself a note right now about that to reach out to you after this is over. And so we've got that. Yeah, it may be that the webpage still says forthcoming, and I'm sorry about that. But I do have the list, and we can share it with you for sure. And it's ready to be put up on the webpage, but it might not be there yet. So regarding state park passes, we do not have, that is all based on a partnership with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, which is the state parks are part of that state agency. And we do not at this time have any knowledge about state park passes for summer 2025. So, you know, stay tuned on that. We do know that that was a very successful program and a very highly, for lack of better terminology, out of my brain, desired program. Like if you all enjoyed offering it and people enjoyed checking out the state park passes, but we do not have any knowledge that that will be available for 2025. Stay tuned because we do hope to be able to provide that partnership again in the future. So stay tuned for that for sure, because we do want to be able to do that and provide that. Again, I'm looking at the things that came in before and just making sure that I have answered. All right, so I think I have answered all the questions on that came in earlier. Again, I'm watching the chat. We got about 5 more minutes before the top of the hour. At this point, if we can move on to the next slide, I'm going to still take questions, but I want to make sure that folks get my email address and my phone number. So if you need to, call me or email me, please feel free to do so. I'd be happy to talk to folks about anything that's on your mind, or anything to follow up on anything we've talked about today. And with that, I think what I'm going to do is take a sip of water. Well, I'll mute myself, take a sip of water, and then I'll be here till the top of the hour. Happy to answer any other questions you might have. Just as a quick note, you will get the recording of this, as well as the which will include the slides and the chat log. So all of that will be delivered to you for if you need to review it at a future time. This recording will be made available on our YouTube page as well, so it will be there also. So again, I'm going to take a quick break, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm just going to mute my microphone as I take a sip of water. So anything else people would like to? Yes, you are welcome. You're very welcome. We're glad that you are here today. Again, I apologize for needing to step away earlier in the hour, but I'm glad that you sort of stuck with me and are here now. So thank you all for everything that you all do. You all do amazing work in libraries across the state, and I'm very thankful for that. So yep, off to the circulation desk, just off to the rest of your day and the rest of the week. Absolutely. Thank you all for being here. Again, I'm here until the top of the hour, so I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Oh, yes, and thank you. There's the survey for follow-up. We do take very seriously the things that you tell us in our evaluations and surveys to help make future events better. Thank you, everybody. Glad you're here today. Thank you, everybody, for being here.